Hey guys, welcome to a fresh video here on the channel. Only about a week or so left before we move into 2025. And before we do that, I wanted to pick up on something that I've noticed, and I'm sure a few of you have noticed as well I think from off-season really until now. And that is the undertone about what is going to make Carlton a better team in 2025. Now, if we start from off-season, we move on players who have been in the system for quite some time, whether it's through injury or whatever the case may be as to why they weren't playing is one story. But we really attacked this new wave to come through to the club. Brought in some fresh energy, the Camporelli twins, Jagger Smith, Harry O'Farrell, these types. And then I've started to notice the undertones in some of the content that I'm seeing from Carlton media, but also just from the club in general. And what I mean by that is the undertones that the growth will come from this younger group of players. Now, I've heard Patrick Cripps make a few comments about this, that younger group that's coming through and how some of them are going to, potentially be the difference for us next year.
I think, that middle tier guys, sort of the 21 to sort of 25, some of those guys start to jump. That's usually where you get a lot of growth. I feel like the other one's just probably consistency and cohesion with the team.
I've seen a quote here or there from Michael Voss, whether it was from that video in the car or from training recently, where he's talking about the way in which the younger players have come and challenged the older players. And I even just think of that little clip of, Jackson Binns and Nick Newman wrestling. And I don't know, I found it to be somewhat symbolic. Like there's something in that when I saw that. Like the young guys are taking it to the older guys to push the standards and raise the roof, or raise the floor, I should say, because I think we're pretty aware of what the ceiling of this group is. It hasn't been reached yet, I don't think. But the floor is where the consistency will come from. The higher the floor, the more consistent this team will be, the way I see it. So I want to go through and pick 5 players for me who I believe will be really the cornerstones of this next wave coming through. Now, spoiler alert, no Cooper Lord, no Jagger Smith. I know they are 2 very popular names, and I think they'll be great in their own right and they'll do great things, but I'm looking at a few different names, and at the end of this video, I'm going to get you to do the same. So these are my 5, and I'm going to label each of them in a different way, and we'll go from there. Now, the first one is Ole Hollands. I think Ole Hollands, I remember when he came into the club, I remember taking note of the intensity with which he trained every time I watched him train. That hasn't stopped. That's always been there. And I remember thinking in his first, year, just can't wait for him to get a couple of pre-seasons under his belt. We're there now. He's entering year 3. He's 20 years old. He's going to be 21 middle of January. So 2021, he's played 42 games. I think he's the one that's going to become ultra reliable for us. I think he's had a really strong foundation over the last couple of years playing on the wing. We've seen hints of him going behind the ball towards the back end of 2024. We've heard little snippets about role changes with, Brody Kemp and Jack Silvani. I think Ole Hollands is the third one that really rounds that out with his move. Maybe not so much permanent. We'll see how that one plays out, but I think we'll see a lot more of him behind the ball, and I think we'll see him get a lot more of the ball than what we have in the last few seasons. And I think now the confidence will come from the work that he's put in and also the continuity. Touch wood with all of these players, but, Ollie's one of a few that's had pretty good continuity. He's been available most, if not all of the time since he's come to the club. So he's had the 40-plus games under his belt, a couple of pre-seasons, and I think he's ready to just become even more reliable for us. And he's not so much the young one that you've kind of got to carry through games a little bit, and you ride the bumps with, how he learns. Now, he's still going to be learning, but I do think he's going to really solidify himself as a reliable player for us in 2025.
Cowan at the fall. Dow is caught by Ole Hollands with Marshall, who wins it down. Clark tackled by Hewitt, spills to Walsh, spinning away.
And for the game, Akers. Ole Hollands places it, tries to give them an...
By Young. After Filippo went to ground. Ole Hollands just enough on the kick.
Earlier, kisses the handball to Hollands. They're creeping their way down the field.
Not sure what to do with it. Chose a good option. Hollands to Sard.
Then there's the quiet achiever, the one that might have the most impact out of all of these, but just goes about it in a quiet way, or so it seems. And that's Lloyd Cowan. Similar to Ole Hollands. He's 20 years old. He's played 24 games. He didn't play as many games in that first year, but he played quite a few in his second year. And I just love everything about what he represents. He's a savage on the field. And I think the way and the speed in which he earned the trust of his teammates, I think goes a little understated. Like, it's hard to do in this league, particularly in defense. And I think he did that at a really high level and, still learning the ropes. Like I said, he's 20 years of age. He's still very, very young, but he's an interesting one because, off the field, I've had the privilege of sitting with him for an interview, very humble. You could almost say shy, but I think we'll start to see his personality and his confidence come through, and that's fine. And I like guys who are like that. I remember Jacob Wiedering was very similar, quiet-ish type personality, let the play on the field do the talking. And I think Lloyd Cowan is that. No nonsense, no bullshit, just not here to fluff around and get amongst any of the bullshit, just goes to work and gets the job done. I love everything about him, both of them. I think the Hollands-Cowan draft has been a really good one for us and pretty confident it's going to continue to be. So Lloyd Cowan, I've kind of labelled him as the quiet achiever, not to take anything away from him, but that's how I see him. Now,
gave it off to Cowan. He's never kicked a goal. There's his first goal in footy.
Have a look at him getting around. The young fella Cowan, first goal in AFL footy. He knew straight away, Richo, as soon as it come off. And look, the best part about you kids who come and kick their first goal.
Dempsey. Cats.
The highest score against Geelong since that day. And Diesel Williams dominated that day, as we know.
The next one is the one who I think has the genuine potential to become a superstar. Now, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot and bit of hype, obviously, going into this. But I just think Elijah Hollands is the one that can take his game to like a really high level. All Australian squad type level. And I think this is obviously talking best case scenario, but I think, the whole story about him in the last 12 months, the redemption from, his time at the Gold Coast Suns and how that ended and, coming home, settling, earning the trust, playing bulk games after, missing the first couple through suspension and becoming, a key cog in the team and a guy that you can't drop, like you had to play. He really earned himself that title. He's currently 22 years of age. He's played 36 games, most of them coming in 2024, 25 goals. We are crying out for a guy that can play through the midfield and hit the scoreboard, and he can do that, and he can do it pretty well. And he also moves differently to all of our other midfielders. He has this ability to think when he first gets the ball before he makes an action, and he also has an ability to kick the ball on his left or his opposite. And he just opens up an angle of the ground that I don't think any of the other midfielders do. Haven't seen too much of Jagger Smith at the AFL level. He might be able to do it, but Walsh, Cripps, I guess Cherry can do it, but Elijah really opens up the ground more than what the others do. So I just think with the continuity of playing the amount of games that he did in 2024, the confidence that he gets, settling in another preseason in a new environment. It's no longer a new environment. Hopefully he feels at home as a Carlton person now and, he can sort of put the past behind him and move forward. I do think he's really ready to emerge into that elite bracket. And if he does, that's obviously best case scenario. Our team goes to a new level because, Cherry's going to come back. He's a pretty good player as well. And I just think Elijah will be the beneficiary of just a better midfield all around and an ever-changing midfield next year.
Ball's on top of it, De Koning to Hollands, who's had a terrific night. Tough place on the ground to turn it over. Hollands jams it down the throat of Curnow.
This next one, I don't know if the word is redemption arc or bounce back arc, but this is a young player who's only 21 years of age, who already is seemingly going through what is viewed as, a bounce back year, which is fascinating, but it also reveals the high standard that he set for himself. And that's Jesse Motlop. So 21 years of age, 40 games, 42 goals. It's well documented what happened in 2024. Just things didn't go his way, certain things in his control, certain things out of his control, learnings about all sorts of things when it comes to the body and recovery and whatever else. I think Jesse will be the only one that truly knows exactly what happened. But for whatever reason, he, had a great preseason and was just tarnished with the injury brush. And the recency bias can kick in if you buy into the external. And I don't know what his mechanisms are like within himself to, absorb the external, see it, but don't sort of hear it, but don't listen to it. Regardless, it's out there. And sometimes some external doubt is good. And I think when you're a competitor, any doubt that you can find along the way is going to help you in certain times. I just am so sure that we're going to be talking about Jesse Motlop this time next year. And it's just going to be like, yep, told you so. He told us so. Like, I just think he's got all the elements that he needs to be a really good football player. The fact that we're talking about it like a bounce back year suggests that he had a pretty good first 2 years, which he did. And this is a guy coming into his fourth season, and we're already talking about, a redemption. And I just think he's ready. I think he's going to show a lot of maturity this year, and I think he's got all the elements, as I said, and I'm excited for him. I think out of all the players who I'm sure are going to definitely be really good next year, I think Jesse's right up there at the top. So I'm excited to see what he's going to produce. And, coming into this part of his career, which is that fourth season, there's 3 layers of drafts before him or after him now. So he's not a veteran, but he's also not, the teenager that just walked into the club. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic.
Looking for Owies. Fantasia to Motlop. Jesse Motlop. Paid a pick.
The ones that are testing out this St Kilda outfit, and we asked it of them 2 days.
Just feel now that the scoreboard's going to force the Saints to play with a bit more dare. They were holding on, defending now. They're going to have to roll the dice and take a chance.
And then there's the wild card. And really, you can go anywhere with this. I had 3 in mind. I started with Billy Wilson, then I went to Ashton Moyer, and now it's Jackson Binns. 20 years old, just turned 20. He's played 3 games, and to be honest, I haven't watched him as much as maybe some of the other younger players, but he definitely caught my attention properly towards the end of 2024, and I've just noticed this comfort and confidence about him at the club, and he believes in himself. And there can be a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and I think he strikes it pretty well from what I've seen anyway. I don't know him personally, and I'm not inside the club day to day to know his personality, but I sense this belief of him within himself, and I really like it. And the reason why I've got him as a wild card, because in an ideal world, we'll talk best case scenario, let's say Jackson Binns gets himself to a level where he's playing 20 plus games in 2025. Ole Hollands moves to behind the ball, whatever happens. If Jackson Binns is doing that, we're such a good team. Like, if he's earning the right to play 20 plus games on that wing / half forward, whatever it is, then someone's coming out from that position or something's getting shuffled around the ground. And I think that's just going to make us such a great team. And yeah, so, Ashton's obviously got this X factor about him. I reckon maybe 1 more year. I know I'm very excited to watch him play, and hopefully he earns the right to play 20 games as well. Maybe 1 more year. I was so torn, but I don't know. There's something about Jackson Binns and this confidence that I'm seeing. Maybe because I watched summer sessions. Maybe it's that clip of him, throwing Nick Newman to the ground. Maybe there's a bit of that in there. Maybe I'm getting sucked into the footage. But I mean, it happened. It's happened. I've heard him speak a little bit. I've watched him train a little bit over the 2 sessions that I've been to in this preseason so far. And yeah, he's also always at the front of the running group. He's always been a great runner, but he's just remained consistent. And I just see this drive and this energy from him that I'm excited to hopefully see manifest into whatever it will be. So he's my wild card.
They load up again, and it's Binns in his second game. He wants to join in the party. They are dominating Carlton and jumping for joy. The first goal of his career. His teammates get right around him.
Just knocking one over from 50 metres, giving it to the crowd. That is exactly how you ride it up.
And take it quickly. It goes out wide. Foot races on. Jewe's there. Binns up for the fight, up for the contest. Lots of numbers. Walsh to Hollands. Binns back to Ole Hollands.
Those are my 5. Those are the 5 that I think, when you talk about the bracket that's going to really elevate us, I think it'll come from those 5 for 5 different reasons. Like I said, you've got someone who could potentially become a superstar player, someone who's just ultra reliable. You've got the quiet achiever. You've got the wild card, which could be anything. And then you've got that bounce back redemption arc. So those are mine. What about you? I'm sure Cooper Lord and Jagger Smith will get a run in your 5. So I'll lift you a couple there. Corey Durden's another one that I've got confidence in. It's a really important year for him. So in the comments below, list the 5 young players. When I say young, let's just say, 23 and under. Like the guys who haven't done more than 4 or 5 pre-seasons. List those guys below, the 5 of them who you're going to be watching very closely and where you think the most impact will come from. And we'll share notes and go from there.